We are ready to start the webcast on recasting developer experiences in an API-first world with AccuWeather. I'd like to introduce who's on the call with me today. So my name is Mark Gardner. I'm a product manager at Apogee, now Google. I've been working on our open API tooling and developer portal and a bunch of other areas of Edge along the way for about the last 8 years. And pleased to have with me today two folks from AccuWeather, David Mitchell and Mark Iannelli. David, if you could introduce yourself, tell us your title, what you do, and then Mark, you can follow.
First of all, thank you for everybody who has chosen to use this time and listen to us today. We'll walk you through, kind of the history and some key points on the AccuWeather APIs. This is David, and I've been with AccuWeather for over 10 years now. And for the last couple of years, been very focused on what we're calling emerging platforms, and that is certainly IoT-type devices, car, home, fitness and health, and then also on data. And all of these types of relationships are driven by our API in one way or another. And
I am Mark Iannelli. I'm a senior technical account manager. I've been at AccuWeather here for nearly 10 years now. And I kind of work now as like a liaison between our sales teams, our IT teams, and then directly with our clients. And I focus very heavily on our API products and our new AccuWeather API developer portal. And so a lot of the technical questions come to myself and the team I work with. Very happy to be here and talk more about the APIs with everyone listening in.
So today we'll be discussing the journey that AccuWeather has gone through and how, basically what I would like to hear, if you could give us a little background on how AccuWeather came to APIs and the API program that you have today. And then we can go from there.
So I think we're going to start out on a little bit of history of AccuWeather in general, just to set the stage, and we'll keep this relatively brief. But for those of you who don't know, AccuWeather is actually a 55-year-old company. We have progressed really through many different phases. Obviously, 55 years ago, it was all analog and things like newspapers, radio, some TV. And have quickly morphed into a almost, from a revenue standpoint, exclusively digital company, both from a consumer and a B2B standpoint. We've had significant growth since smartphones, and we'll go over that in a little bit more detail later, outside of the U.S., and to the point where now 50 or 60+% of our traffic comes from outside the U.S., both through partners and on our own owned and operated products, such as our iPhone and Android applications. We have significant content that does span the globe, and we have many partnerships, including over 200 of the Fortune 500 companies. We are preloaded on most Android devices distributed globally. The number down the bottom right of the screen you see now is at least 1.5 billion devices, and that's typically in the form of a widget. Those widgets drive traffic to our mobile website, and all of those properties, whether it's a partner widget or our own websites, are powered by our API. And you'll hear about some of the growth that has enabled for us as we get deeper into the presentation today, too. Along with this global growth for us, it's been really important for us to both have a presence in more than the U.S. as far as offices, and we now have offices obviously in the U.S. We have office in India, Japan, Korea, Canada, and China with a joint venture. And so along with that growth, we've also translated our content into over 100+ dialects and distributed as such through the API. And at the same time, we've been able to maintain and even improve on our forecast accuracy. And actually, I'm happy to share today in this setting the latest study done by an organization called Forecast Watch, which is a third-party organization that looks across the weather industry and measures accuracy independent of any of the people they are actually measuring. And we came out number one across really the three most important categories, and that is the overall temperature forecast, the precipitation forecast, and wind speed forecast. And we did come out number one in all three of those, and we're very proud of that and continue to work hard to make sure we stay or improve across these categories. I'm going to pass it off to Mark now, and he is going to talk really more specifically about the history of our APIs.
Yeah, so I mean, AccuWeather has kind of built a reputation over time. I mean, we started developing our own house products when we began nearly 55 years ago, and clients used to have to come to us for the AccuWeather data. We had newspaper, radio, TV, and personalized forecasts for businesses. One of the first products, or first sales even for Joel, was selling it to a local ski resort, making forecasts specifically for them so they knew when to make snow overnight and not waste resources. So, I mean, it's understanding how to cater weather information for your specific product. So as the market evolved over time, I mean, smartphones kind of came around into existence only within the past 10, 15 years as far as being very high in use cases. And we had to learn how to take advantage of that and learn how to evolve with the market trend with mobile devices. And it evolved how people were getting data from us, and that evolved into the use of APIs. Getting that large quantities of data from a specific URL and API and utilizing it to create weather widgets and weather apps. We are actually pre-installed on 9 out of 10 smartphones in the market right now and the largest device manufacturers. It's enabled us to go with evolving our APIs from being very low volume, XML formatted, very client-specific products and with low cacheability, to now evolving to what the smartphone market what it is today, as well as other products, learning that we had to evolve our own APIs into a JSON formatted, high cacheability, high efficiency for very high volumes. I'll show a slide later, but I mean, we've evolved our API into nearly 30 billion API requests per day after starting at less than 1 million per day. So it's really grown in understanding how to improve our efficiencies to improve that cacheability. As David pointed out, though, I mean, we have a very large global following with nearly 6% of our traffic coming from outside the U.S. And a big part of that has been with our mobile device manufacturers having us pre-installed on their phones, so that's the out-of-the-box experience when you go to use that smartphone for the first time. But in addition to that, and in addition to our accuracy, which you also touched on, it's just our full global coverage. We offer forecasts for everywhere in the world, and as David said, we have localization support for over 100 languages and dialects, and we have direct relationships with government meteorological agencies from around the world to bring severe weather content to the end users. So that's actually a very big thing that we're very happy about, because we have these direct relationships with these government agencies and allows us to bring the exact severe weather alert that the local users are used to seeing from agencies like the CMA in China, DWD in Germany, UK Met Office in Canada, etc., for over 37 different countries around the world. AccuWeather takes all those products, we work directly with those agencies, and we normalize it into one single API response, and it is accessible via our Alerts API and brings a very specific and unique and localized information to end users about severe weather. And we even make that better by using our localization cover, our language support, and bringing key information from all those individual alert providers and localizing it in whatever language you choose, so that no matter who you are, where you are, what language they speak, you can get the key information to ensure that you're getting yourself to safety. And that's something that our users know and understand, and they love about our products. Another important product that we have is our Minicast product, and that is something that it's available in over 21 countries, and mostly in North America, most of Europe, and parts of Asia. It is a minute-by-minute precipitation forecast for the next 2 hours, and it's a great product in predicting your day, whether you're trying to determine what time you need to leave the house and try to get around rain or snow, or whether you're just trying to predict if the heaviest part of the rain is going to hit you or heaviest part of the storm. So it's been a great product for us. It has high user engagement, and that is also available via our API. Over time now, like I said, it's that products like that with the severe weather alerts and Minicast has led to the increased growth that we've had over the years. And here's just one last slide that's showing that growth. And I just want to point out that 2017 year to date on this slide for total API requests per year is actually showing from January through June. So we're actually about ready to already eclipse our 2016 traffic totals for API, and getting close to over 9 trillion projected API calls for our values in 2017.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, good ears. It's interesting to me. I think so many industries have been disrupted by the rise of APIs, but weather seems to have been somewhat immune to that. Do you have any sort of insight into why?
The weather is always there. I mean, it impacts every part of your day. It's not something that really evolves over time as far as the necessity or need to understand the weather and how it's going to impact your day and how you plan your life. So the only thing that's evolved is how we kind of process the weather and look at it. Are you just looking at it for whether the certain information, or are you looking for it for how you can kind of leverage a specific product and a specific use case for your house? And that's actually something that Dave is going to start talking about here shortly, like whether it comes to connected home products, IoT products, health products. Understanding how the weather impacts all of that is vastly important. That's why weather data as a need in the industry has actually grown, in my opinion, and it's continued to stay strong.
Yeah, just to add on to that too, I think another thing that's somewhat unique about weather is, the ability to deliver it via API is also, because of what Mark said, it fits. You can make an argument almost anywhere, whether can touch it and influence how people approach something or make decisions around something. And the ability to do that, deliver it via an API, but then also use that delivery as a trigger to drive people to our properties has been key to us. So it's allowed us to increase distribution, but at that same time, that increased distribution has enabled us to drive users back to our properties and grow our business as well. And I don't think that fits a lot of other industries where APIs have come in. The delivery is taken over by the API.
But that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it seems to me that the story of AccuWeather through the years is that it's great to deliver forecasts, and in a Web 1.0 world, you would dump a whole bunch of forecasts onto the internet and expect people to discover them. But then, as we've seen the rise of smartphones, really truly personal devices, you have the ability you didn't have before, which is to get information to people based on where they are. Like, that's truly personal. But it seems to me, because the other great force around APIs that we've seen is the rise of cloud and virtualization. But it seems to me that even though you're in the business, you're in the cloud business, the real life cloud business, that it's the story of smartphones and that personal and hyper-local that has been driving your growth, and that your awareness around location is part of the reason why you were able to ride the wave and not get disrupted by someone else.
Absolutely.
Is that fair?
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
So we'll move on and really go into some partner stories is the title. It's really somewhat more focused on we kind of just summarized on smartphones, and smartphones, we are still there, and it's still a great business for us, and we're working with partners on how we even move to next steps there. And on the slide that's in front of you now, there's organizations like Samsung and LG and others on there that certainly play in that smartphone space, but they also play in spaces that go well beyond smartphone now, and those include the partners I just said, as well as partners like Amazon and Google and Fitbit and people like this, where the delivery mechanisms vary greatly from smartphone. And in some ways this brings challenges. So monetizing voice right now certainly has its challenges, but it is certainly moving very quickly, and adoption is happening at a rapid pace. And then it brings in a bunch of these other new interesting scenarios, especially if I've my role's blinders on around how do we take weather data and start to mash it up with other at least newly available at scale types of data. So whether that's fitness data, health type data, data around what's going on inside of a home or inside of a car, pull that into our systems and or push weather into our partner systems, and start to again mash these two data sets together. And not only can we potentially develop brand new products, we can also think about how those products are delivered, and whether that's for performance issues or safety issues, and things like that. And so these are certainly things we are tackling both within our four walls, but then really in this kind of ecosystem, partnerships are really key, because that's where the most interesting new product development takes place is this combination of data sets that really haven't been put together at scale before, for sure. Really what we want to, the next couple slides I'm going to focus on are a couple of what we feel are some of our more interesting things that are active right now. And so if we go to the next slide, and one of these scenarios is in a connected car type environment. And so we have a product now that we are at least currently calling Minicast along a route. Mark referred to Minicast earlier in the presentation, and so this is taking our Minicast product, so saying, is it going to rain or snow, and with what intensity on a minute-by-minute basis, and pairing that up with routing information that would be available via navigation systems that could be embedded in a car or otherwise. And then looking at and sending messages back to the drivers around choices they could make. We could potentially reroute them. We could potentially recommend that they leave earlier to miss the weather. We could recommend that they leave later because the weather will pass quickly. And there's in-betweens within those scenarios as well. We could also deliver that via visual, as what's on the slide in front of us right now, but obviously voice is also playing a role within car as well, and that's another option. So even if you don't have your navigation or map visible, we could potentially give heads up around what is happening on the road ahead of you on the route you provided us. And there's a lot of different scenarios that could potentially play out here. And then obviously you could also go all the way towards autonomous vehicles with this, when people are not necessarily looking at the road ahead of them or the clouds that may be up there pouring down rain. What kind of information do cars need in order to make some of these decisions on their own and alert passengers, not just drivers?
Yeah, and this is actually really helpful in areas like State College, PA here, where AccuWeather's global headquarters are located. Anyone that is been in this area or passed through it knows that lake effect snow squalls are a thing that happen quite frequently in the wintertime. And for those of you that aren't aware what a lake effect snow squall is, it's a very intense but short but intense snow storm and blizzard-like conditions. And even this past March, actually, we had a couple different snow bands that were passing through and impacting interstates 99 and 80, major roadways going in and out of State College, and it actually caused multiple pileups. Over like 65 cars were involved in two separate crashes because of these lake effect snow squalls, and people were stuck in frigid conditions for hours on the highway. And a product like this can help warn drivers to wait or to take a different route, because I mean it's very powerful in getting that information out. I mean, AccuWeather's mission is to save lives and protect property. This product is one way we can do that.
Cool. So I mean, it certainly seems like partnerships are critical to you. I think the best example of partnerships is better together, right? And in this case, AccuWeather wasn't about to build its own navigation system that could react to weather conditions, but by specializing in making these super accurate forecasts, you open up new experiences, new possibilities that both the car makers couldn't have delivered on their own, and that you couldn't have delivered on their own. I think that's sort of that's the magic best case scenario where your partner story happens. And it looked like from your previous slide, you got a bunch of those stories to tell. One question I have specific to this is there anything particularly interesting about these APIs? How are they delivered? Is this a streaming API? How do you deal with permissions and such? What goes into making one of these integrations work?
So I don't know that there's a particular difference in the API. Obviously, the time to live on the data in Minicast is significantly different than some of our other data points. But other than that piece, and there are some challenges around that, right? Because data requests, at times all developers are challenged by how often do I request, what's cacheable, what's not cacheable. And I won't lie, there's been certainly some hard discussions around how do we make the Minicast data available in a way that optimizes the usability of it. And I'll give you a perfect example. In some connected devices, especially ones that may be tethered to phones, they don't even necessarily have the ability to call every minute or every 5 minutes. They might be defaulted to, I'm going to go and talk to the phone every 15 minutes type of scenarios. And so there's certainly things we need to talk through in those regards. And cars probably fall into some of those same categories.
Yeah, I mean, we're working with different manufacturers and learning best ways to deliver the data content. Because, I mean, with as David said, Minicast is a street-level quality accuracy for the forecast. So it's breaking it down to your street level with your specific GPS point. So to have a Minicast along the route product like this work, obviously you're consistently calling, updating your location, it's updating the route, it's updating the weather conditions as you're going along. So we're working with the different auto manufacturers as well as the in-dash manufacturers and talking about ways to deliver that content, or even, as David said, the refresh rate in accessing that content, more specifically with the RESTful API content. So it's, as David said, it's a challenge, but we're excited about the product, and in talking to different partners already, they are too, and we can't wait to make this available here for the developer audience. And
so just a reminder to the audience we have today in the webcast, there will be some time for questions at the end, but if you are interested in have a specific question that is relevant within the presentation, I'll try to address that, and we have one here. What do these partners expect from your products outside of accuracy? Are there specific SLAs, for instance?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have lots of different clients that actually have very demanding SLAs, and it's to be expected with a product like weather. And in certain situations, when you're talking about severe weather alerts and, say, for example, a worst-case scenario, a massive tornado, seconds and minutes can mean the difference between safety or not. I mean, life or death. I mean, so having high reliability and high speed and efficiency, that's very important to us, and that's why we've worked very hard on setting up a very solid infrastructure. Our API development team, they should be very proud of the work they've done as far as setting this up, and we've been recognized by third-party sources of having some of the highest API traffic volume out of major companies. I know in 2014 they did a study and actually found us within the top 5 among companies like Facebook and Google as far as API traffic. It's because of the infrastructure that we built. So having the reliability and the speed and the high SLA to know that not just are you getting AccuWeather's premium forecast and the accuracy that you depend on, but you're getting it in a reliable and efficient manner so that you know that the end user is getting the content they need. It's hopefully keeping them safe in worst case scenarios, but it's there for them when they need it.
The other piece that's interesting that we certainly have spent a ton of time on because customers drove it is location accuracy.
Yes.
We have a team that is dedicated to location names is really what I'm referring to there.
Yep.
So, we ingest lat long in many cases now, but then we need to turn that into a name. Mm-hmm. And if we get that location wrong, then everything's downhill from there from a weather forecast standpoint.
Yeah, that's a great
that's
point.
a huge piece of focus for us and time, an area that we've spent a lot of time on, and we consistently get very significant positive feedback on it.
Yeah, we have a location management team that works around the clock, and as David said, we get a lot of great feedback even from partners, especially with having global OEMs around the world, original equipment manufacturers. They're constantly providing feedback about their home countries or locations and sharing that with us so that we can improve the product not just for them but for their end users. And it's something we take very seriously about the quality of our location content and the accuracy. And then obviously improving that with localized information so that not just where you are, but being able to actually read and interpret that data is very important to us. So that's kind of answer that question in full and bring it back full circle. That's what you can expect from the AccuWeather API. It's not just the accuracy of the content, but the quality of the product that you're getting and the reliability of our API service.
So then, do your partners expect or demand a kind of support page where they can see the performance of your APIs? Like how do you give them the transparency that makes them comfortable?
We have constant support and communication going open. We do not have a page open yet. That is something we are working towards as far as our uptime and reliability. But we do have constant communication with our clients, like I said, 24/7 support team. We have teams that work around the clock to make sure that our content is working efficiently and reliably. So far, even with the most demanding clients in the industry right now, we are keeping satisfaction.
Yep. Do you see a difference as you're moving from a partner program toward a more open developer program? The nature of that relationship must change a bit, right? Between having this dedicated team that you can contact at any time and something that's more self-service. Is there anything you can describe in the shift there?
As far as maintaining the support and reliability, you mean?
Right. And so I imagine, for instance, you said you were considering what status pages might be, or what status information might be useful to your developers. I expect that's a part of the story of your transition from partner-oriented to trying to open up your program more broadly. Is that fair?
That's definitely something we're working towards more in the future as far as getting that information out there, because I mean, the whole point of the AccuWeather API developer portal, which we'll be touching on a little bit more shortly, is to make it a completely self-serve, self-sufficient program that users can just go in and sign up on their own and then have that information that they need as far as whether there's any potential problems or any new announcements. So having that awareness, we already make a lot of that aware on our API documentation page for our enterprise APIs, which is utilized by all of our top clients and some of the partnerships we were touching on briefly before. But with our developer portal, we're working on bringing the information more forefront, so that way instead of having to come out and ask for it, it will be there when you need it, so you are aware of any potential changes or updates or enhancements.
To move to the next and kind of our last example right now, and in some ways it's going to be similar to the car example I gave, but it's around an area in healthcare, in particular a partnership we're forming with a company called Cohero Health, who has connected asthma medication inhalers and the connected spirometers, and then a platform called the Breathe Smart platform that allows, so when a user uses their medication or conducts a lung function test with the spirometer, it records all of the information around what the medication dosage was, what the medication was, what the lung function measurements are, but it also records location, and then we can also pull in weather, current conditions, and even look at past and potentially forecast information. And really the goal of this partnership over time is to create very personalized forecasts for asthma conditions. And you know, it's a really compelling space. You see there's a lot of activity in connected health going on, and there are other ailments or conditions that are affected by weather as well, and we have some other conversations going on. But this one's certainly one that's moving forward as we speak, and we're looking forward to learning and deploying this in places where it makes sense. So this is another great combination of weather data plus newly available data that allows for what we believe is significant improvement in monitoring of health conditions. So with that, I think what we'll do now is kind of to give a brief overview. What Mark had talked to you a little bit ago is the actual more publicly available developer portal that we've launched.
Yeah, and I mean, that's kind of bringing all back around now with that introduction and the stories and kind of the history of the AccuWeather and AccuWeather using APIs. We've taken, with the help of Apogee, we've taken the help, or our API product that has been used by many different clients, industries, global industry leaders from around the world for many years now, and it's been accessible and widely used. Well, now we're making it even easier to access with this API developer portal at developer.accuweather.com. Now users can go in with a frictionless setup, no more sales reps, no more legal team, no more dealing with somebody like me. And you can just go in at any time, create an account, pick a package, and go. Just start developing. We have 4 different packages available. One of them is a free limited trial. We also have paid packages titled as Standard, Prime, and Elite. They vary in content, the amount of volume of API traffic accessible, and the, length and duration of content, such as like extended forecast periods. So we offer like current conditions, daily and hourly forecasts, our AccuWeather indices, lifestyle indices, which are a great product for helping to take the guesswork out of your life and planning your day, such as things like, is it a good day to mow the lawn? Is it a good day to go for a run? Information like that. We also offer the Severe Weather Alerts API, which, as I noted before, with the direct government partnerships that we have, meteorological agencies around the world, bringing that information to the end users. Lots of our different API content, and we will soon be adding more over time. But with Apogee, I mean, we've had the help as far as being able to offer the different prices, and for anyone that's looked at our site, we have packages and prices, like I said, at developer.accuweather.com. And we offer a monthly fee, and then also a CPM rate, CPM standing for calls per thousand, or cost per thousand calls. And what that does is it allows a developer who's building something to create a product, and we have, as you might see, limits on the amount of traffic that you get with a paid package, that if you go over that limit, instead of turning off your product, we don't want a developer to have to like stop use of their product. You get charged at a CPM rate, so that way you're basically getting charged by the number of requests that you use. And it gives the developer more freedom to do what they want and not have to worry about limitations of their product. They can just pay as they go, and then as they choose to, they can upgrade their service at any time. They can downgrade if they determine that they don't need as much quality. So it really puts the control into the user and accessing our API content.
What caused you to go down this path? Why did you decide that an open API program was right for AccuWeather? And
Sure.
What are you seeing that's different about that?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we wanted to be able to get this information and reach a larger audience. I mean, right now, the process that we deal with API content is very manual. A user or a partner or a client company would have to come in, they have to contact our sales team, they go through the process of trying to explain what they're doing, they talk to our legal team to set up a contract, they have to talk to somebody like me to get API information and access and learn about it a little bit. It's a very manual process. It can be a little bit slower. It makes a lot of sense for different partnerships as you look at larger things, but we wanted to reach out to everybody, whether it's the large smartphone manufacturer or the guy in his basement developing the next really cool idea, or just even using it for home personal use. I mean, one great story we had is we had the gentleman reach out to us and note that he used our API by signing up here in developer.accuweather.com, and he was able to automate his backyard awning on his deck using our API by monitoring the cloud coverage. And he even gave us a kudos in saying that our accuracy is much better than similar competitors, and it works great as far as opening and closing his awning for shade on his back deck. So, I mean, it's just a great application, and those are the people we want to reach. And we understand that those people sometimes don't want to go through the process of talking to the sales team and everyone else. They want to just go on at any time, whether it's 2 o'clock in the morning or in the middle of the day, whenever. They can just go, get that API information that they need, and they just sign up. And it's great. We've been getting a lot of great feedback, seeing some great ideas, and the number of users signing up has just been growing by the day. And we're excited about that, and we're excited to finally bring this to more people, growing audience.
So I imagine one of the challenges is figuring out how you price this to encourage people's explorations. I'm going to guess that the man doing his awning automation is on the free tier, but how do you find that balance between what's the right amount to give away and at what point do you become valuable enough that it's worth charging?
Sure. I mean, we've analyzed different market patterns and growth and looking at even competitors, just honestly, and you have to look at what's out there already. What are people charging? What are people willing to pay? We want to make it fair. We want to make sure that people are not turned off when they go to our page and look at the content that's there and trying to decide what they want to do, because there are other sources out there. But a lot of people come back to AccuWeather because they know about the accuracy and reliability of our forecasts and our information that we provide, our global coverage, our localization support. So they come to AccuWeather and they look at what we have and they understand the content that we're offering. So we offer it at a fair price, and we've been noticing that people are receptive of that. They're signing up, and they're excited about the content that we're offering. Definitely in research and discussion and understanding like the popular content that people want is what we made available first as far as the API packages that we listed, and then just pricing it out based on understanding volume, traffic volume from some of our current partnerships and clients, and understanding how they're using it, how much traffic they need for the products that they're using, and essentially pricing it at an appropriate, fair price.
It's not set in stone, right? So we feel good about what we've put out there. We have some plans for additional content and things like that, and where those fit. And then, you know, as you started to say there, yeah, we're going to be monitoring it and seeing, you know, what tweaks we can and should make to it as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're using the App G Edge product, which is great because it helps our team monitor the information that's coming in, excuse me, as far as who's signing up, where they're coming from, what information they're accessing, how frequently they're accessing it. It's been very useful for us. And one thing, as David said, upcoming products that we're excited to announce is we soon hope to be offering our Minicast API via our API developer portal. Like I said, we know it's a product that everyone loves to use, and like I said, that street level precipitation forecast for the next 2 hours. So we have already had people asking about that, and so we're excited that we will soon be hopefully offering that on the portal so people can start signing up for it. And we have a Twitter page. so that we will make these announcements. We also will announce it on the portal itself. So anyone listening, we just recommend just keep checking, and we're hopefully going to be having it available for users very soon.
Well, I mean, that brings up two other interesting questions. One is, how do you decide which APIs are right for your developer programs? I imagine there are some that you restrict to partners and that there's some that are internal, and that over time, that the pattern we often see is that an API moves from being internal to being partner to being public. Are there any specific examples that you've faced in that?
Yeah, I mean, well, excuse me, there's obviously like the no-brainers, like the current conditions and forecast information that's obviously the core content that you're going to make available. Same severe weather alert content is important to the safety of individuals. We wanted to make that available as well. AccuWeather lifestyle indices is an important product. Some of the content that we've withheld at this point is some of our super long extended forecasts that we offer. Like on our website, we have our 90-day forecast and 45-day forecast. That's information that we are open to offering it to our end users and partners and clients, but it's obviously that involves more of a discussion because it maybe involves more of a potential business and use case. And those are the guys we encourage them to reach out to us through the contact page, because a lot of our developers have reached out to us and found that we have an enterprise API and this developer portal. And they've noted that we have additional content on our enterprise API that's not yet available on our developer portal. And we encourage them to reach out to us, talk to us, because then they talk to our sales team and they learn about the different opportunities that we have. Because we do also other business opportunities as far as true partnerships and sharing the revenue through linking back to our website from a mobile widget. Anyone that has an Android phone and has used an AccuWeather pre-installed widget has seen how it links back to our website if you click on it. That's an example of a business case, how both partners benefit from the use of our AccuWeather APIs. And that's something that we should try to share that with our potential clients so they learn about the other opportunities that we have and why we have other amounts of data that we can offer and other business opportunities that are available based on their specific need.
Yeah, but to follow up on your question too, Marsh, is I think Minicast, honestly, that Mark just talked about being available soon is a perfect example of when we were first putting together the packages, there was a lot of internal debate on should Minicast be part of the product or not.
Yeah.
And really, one of the simplest reasons is nobody else has Minicast in the market. And so is it something we protect and drive people to our properties to use, or do we make it more widely available and see how that plays out?
Yeah.
And you can tell from Mark's statements a few minutes ago that we have decided to make this available to see what other people at scale, so to speak, or more easily available can decide to do with it themselves.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So it sounds like, I mean, a key part from earlier of the interactions that you described is that partners help you get your forecast to users, and that often the relationship then encourages some sort of tie back to the mobile website, for instance, to get more information. And so I think that's probably, my guess is that that's playing into how much you decide to offer up versus complete that interaction. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely correct.
And so then another thing you touched on here is that, and we've seen it also with lots of other customers who try to move from partners to more open API programs, is that so much of that open API program is dependent on involving marketing as a partner. A developer portal really needs to have participation from the marketing part of the organization, and sometimes that can be a challenge for people on this journey. How have you done it?
In some ways, maybe we're lucky, but our marketing department has done a great job in being kind of fully committed to this creation of awareness around the program. There's obviously things around timing and where do we get the messages out that are internal discussions, but we have not had to do a lot of convincing that it's necessary. So from that degree, I think you could call us lucky compared to how it might play out in some other organizations. We do certainly have a commitment from the organization as a whole that this is an important part as we look forward of kind of our journey and how we continue to grow the company as a whole.
But yeah, I mean, AccuWeather's APIs really touch everything within the company. AccuWeather utilizes our own APIs for a lot of our own products, actually, like our AccuWeather for Android, AccuWeather for iPhone apps. And so, as David said, it didn't take much convincing. I think it's great and exciting when your product is big enough that everyone was excited to work and jump on the opportunity as far as getting this moving. And as David said, our marketing team has done a great job. I've been working with them almost daily as far as getting the information out, determining how we want to start getting the word out, working obviously closely with you guys, which we've been very thankful for, and trying to bring awareness out. And we're going to be pushing more of a marketing campaign in the future and kind of bringing awareness to our API. But the great thing about AccuWeather, it's a brand, like I said, that's well known globally because of our reputation. So we're fortunate enough that actually in a lot of cases people have already been looking for us and looking for this content, so we're happy to finally make it available to them. Like I said, in a lot of cases people just turn on their phone and they see AccuWeather right there, and that's a great marketing pitch right there in itself, and just understanding that AccuWeather is bringing that information and they want to learn how to use it too.
Do you have anything more that you wanted to talk about in terms of your developer program, or are you ready to open it up for questions?
I think we're ready to open it up for questions. I'm sitting here looking at a few, and I see some really good ones coming in.
So I'll feed some to you, and I think I'll mostly try to take them in order. Do you have any thoughts or comments on sort of the more RESTful style versus GraphQL, especially for mobile?
Not directly at this time. I'm not.
Are you considering a GraphQL interface at this time? You're not. Sounds like.
Not at this time, no.
Yeah, I mean, myself, I think GraphQL is interesting. I think if you have a system that is easily represented as a graph, then it's worth considering. It has some nice partial response, is what I would call it. The ability for clients to decide exactly what fields they would like to consume. And that's neat, but I also think that what's most interesting to me is how much of the conversation it seems to have taken from hypermedia. Like the buzz around hypermedia seems to have gone down as much as the buzz around GraphQL has gone up. I think in some ways people are looking for an alternative to this more RESTful style. Myself, we know that a contract-based approach is tried and true. It's been around for a long time, and we've seen approaches like APIs that can be described with an open API specification. That people are just familiar with that at this time, but I think definitely, from my opinion, GraphQL is certainly technology to watch. But that's my opinion.
Absolutely.
Let's take another question here. What challenges have you faced with having to support external APIs, and how have you addressed them?
I guess with using our APIs and developing with them, I'm assuming the question is being asked?
Well, it's the customer support, I think, is what they're asking about. Right?
Yeah. I'm just making sure I understand the question.
I mean, certainly scaling, for instance, is tricky. Like, are you trying to use forums to engage basic questions? How do people who have questions and problems, how do you make sure that they get the answers they need? Part of it is, I'm sure, getting feedback on your documentation and such, but how do you specifically help people when they need it?
Yeah, I mean, well, you touched on the first point. We have great documentation available online, and like I said, lots of people have found that. And like I said, we also have a 24/7 support team, and surrounded by a great team as far as developers and technical support throughout the company, as far as managing accounts at all hours of the day, 24/7, 365, and getting them the help that they need. So we've never had issues where clients are reaching out with problems, because we are always there. The weather does not stop.
Right, but again, to go back to the what challenges, we certainly had a challenge on the quality of our documentation when we started.
Yes.
Right? That's
actually a great point.
It's a common story. Yeah.
In the beginning years, it was much more infant style, and like I said, we had a very customer-specific API program where each API was unique and kind of catered for each client, and it was a very inefficient product because each API was different and unique, and it was very uncacheable.
Yep.
So each API then was almost kind of getting its own custom documentation, and that actually helped evolve us into what we are today, as far as creating kind of a specific API content, API endpoints, or like an endpoint referring to like our current conditions API, our daily forecast API, our hourly forecast API. That's allowed us to create consistency, which increases cacheability, which improves our efficiency. So that's why we were able to go from millions of calls per day with these very specific catered a la carte almost APIs for clients, to what we have now, which is a highly cacheable, well-oiled machine of nearly 30 billion API calls per day, because of the content that we've created. Like I said, it's a specific API response that is highly cacheable, and it's allowed us then to improve our documentation and our support, because now it's no longer, let me verify which this client is, what content are they getting. There's still a little bit of that, obviously, with our API content, but we know that if they're talking about the forecast API, the current conditions, whether there's something with the data, something with the API itself, we can track it down much more quickly and allows us to really help that client and help all of our API clients.
And just to piggyback on that for a second too, is Mark keeps saying highly cacheable, which is very true. But the interesting thing about weather content is there's a wide range in what highly cacheable means.
True.
So current conditions change really fast.
Yeah.
So even though we do cache them, they're cached for very short periods. But with the volume we have, that's still very important for us to do.
Yeah.
Location names, although they're very important as we talked about earlier, they're highly cacheable for much longer periods of time because locations names don't change that often. So those are kind of the two extreme ends.
And to touch a little bit more on the cacheability for the developers out there, it's anyone that's already looked at our APIs are maybe aware that we have things called location keys. And a location key is a unique identifier for each location. To put this into a little bit more context then of why we do this, having a location key for a specific location improves our cacheability because, for example, New York City, millions of people are calling a New York City observation, current condition, or forecast throughout the day, every minute, every second. Instead of serving each of those people individually, we improved our efficiencies and cacheability by allowing responses by GPS, city name search, a postal code search. They're all mapped to location keys, and often those location keys are consistent and the same. For example, a city name versus a GPS might return the same location key. That then API response, you can use that location key to search, for example, like current conditions or forecast information, and that API response for like the current conditions API can then be highly cacheable. So instead of returning that current conditions response for every client or user that calls, you might be serving one single API response multiple times, as opposed to refreshing and recalling it from origin servers time and time again. So, and that API response may live in our edge and cloud servers for 5 to 10 minutes, but that is one API response being served from edge as opposed to 10 million responses coming in for the exact same content. And we do have some clients that will increase their traffic to tens to even hundreds of millions of calls over 10 seconds. And a lot of the times that's big city information. So instead of serving that same information time and time again from our origin servers, we increase the cacheability and improves our efficiency by serving it in a much better and timelier content.
Cool. You touched on a bit here as you were rethinking some of your APIs. There's a question that asks, what are some best practices you've followed in terms of API design which you've noticed have made a difference for your partners?
Yeah. The biggest thing we've done is we used to have in our old APIs a kind of a consolidated a la carte content. And what that did is that decreased our cacheability because, like I said, each API response was unique. And anyone that knows APIs knows that when you're calling it, each API URL is cached individually. So whether you're using AccuWeather APIs as an example, where you have the ability to change a language code or add additional details with the details equals true parameter on the API to get additional content and response. Adding those on the URL will change the caching or the uniqueness of that API request itself so that each URL is cached individually. So therefore, by improving the consistency in the content, you're improving the cacheability of the API. In the old days, each of our APIs were actually named by the client name. So instead of an AccuWeather or api.accuweather.com, or with our developer portal, dataservice.accuweather.com, it was actually something, for example, like samsungmobile.accuweather.com or lg.accuweather.com. And that obviously dramatically reduced the cacheability because now here's multiple partners using the same APIs and calling, in most cases, the exact same content, but they're cached individually just because of their uniqueness of their API. So now we've kind of streamlined it into a highly cacheable product with consistent domain names. We've broken it into individual API endpoints. This has actually helped the developers by allowing them to call content as they need. So instead, we've had requests for having data kind of consolidated into one single API package, and it's something we are consistently looking at and trying to work to improve the efficiency of a response like that. But we've actually had a lot of developers who prefer the format that we have, which is individual API endpoints, because it improves the developer freedom and the cacheability, because as we were saying, not all weather content is equal in the sense that it's not always time sensitive and urgent. current conditions you want to update every 5 to 10 minutes, but a forecast might only need to be updated once or twice an hour or a few times per day, depending on whether you're looking at hourly or daily content. So instead of, especially for a case of a mobile product, calling that all of that content all of the time and increasing data package sizes, and which utilizes data usage for the end user's mobile device or potentially battery life, they can break it down into individual API endpoints and call the data as needed, which, like I said, improves that efficiency and the developer freedom and what they're doing and creating a smooth and efficient product. So that's one thing we definitely learned, is how to break the content up to actually improve cacheability. And the more consistent the content, the more highly cacheable it is, which is more efficient over time.
Cool. We're starting to get low on, well, the questions are coming in faster than we can answer them. Yeah, which is great. I'm glad that people are so excited about the topic. I'm going to have to pick a couple of these that sort of fit with those themes, I think. One question that came in is, would you say that monetization through freelance developers is a long cycle compared to working with customers directly?
It's interesting because in some ways it speeds up monetization because we've reduced the friction of having to contact us and talk about specific needs and set up a API key, and now you can go in, put your credit card information, and have access to our content immediately, so to speak. Obviously, we're at different scales, though, right? So there's the free version, there's the $25 version, and things like that. So from a per sale standpoint, it certainly is less average per sale, but we honestly believe that this was something that we were actually missing out on. To be blunt, where we are a little bit late to the game from a actual launch time on access such as a credit card payment process. And we could spend hours talking about how that path looked like, but we won't. So we feel really good about the fact that it's out there now, and it's available for both the freelance developers, which is certainly a big part of what we're seeing there, but then also we've seen many Fortune 500 companies come in and input data into this too, because they have developers that are either tasked with go find something new and innovative in your 20% type time, or just projects where they're thinking, hey, I need to use weather really quick to see what the impact may be. Yeah. And so it's definitely a big mix as far as the portal itself.
And we've had a lot of those clients come in and too, as I said, evolve with the content. They've started with the lower end package and they quickly realized, I like this product and I want to do a lot more with it in terms of very, very high volume. And we've kind of moved them and introduced them to a sales rep, and we've worked with them and understood what their business needs were, so we can really give them the content that they want. And with this portal, it's allowed us to have that accessibility to the end user that maybe they wouldn't have approached us before if they had to talk to somebody right away, but now they're able to go in and try it on their own, potentially even pay for a package, really kick the tires on the program. Then they can come to us and really talk about big picture ideas.
So I think we have time for one more question here. I'm told that we can answer a bunch of, we'll make an effort to answer these questions via email afterwards as well, if you're willing, Mark and David. The question just came in was, are you considering gRPC?
I don't believe so at this time, but something I will discuss with the team, for sure.
Yeah, we've definitely seen gRPC is certainly a great way for microservices to talk to each other. Efficiency of communication with your own system to system. It sounds like you're not hearing customer requests for gRPC as an interface themselves, and I guess that makes some sense because the bandwidth wins there are probably not gigantic from a client perspective. Anyway, cool. It's an interesting question, but I'm sorry that we are now at the top of the hour. We'll do our best to address the questions that remain here that we weren't able to get to. Mark, David, thank you very much for telling your story about how you've been headed down your API journey and using Apigee in your developer portal launch. I think you've got a really exciting product here. I would encourage folks on the call to give it a whirl. Weather can make so many things better. Thank you all, and have a great day.